Good morning, my fellow Michiganders. Good morning, my fellow Americans. Welcome to the Grassroots Army Podcast. I'm, of course, your host, Garrett Soldano, and we have some hot garbage to cover today. We're going to start right off the bat with the World Health Organization and their power grab and what they're trying to push through. A lot of the corporate media is not talking about this. Weird, right? But we need to highlight this because, especially all of us who went through the draconian measures, especially in the state of Michigan, underneath our governor, Gretchen Whitmer, and the draconian lockdowns, mandates, and everything else that they did with canceling school athletics. The list goes on and on. We have to make sure that we keep those decisions in our country and do not allow the World Health Organization to make these decisions for our sovereign state. Okay, so let's get right into what Nigel Farage talks about, and he is spot on. So listen in.
What's your issue with the World Health Organization?
Good morning.
Good morning.
So the World Health Organization, which is part of the United Nations, was set up and designed to be an early warning system. You know, something like SARS hit a few years ago, the rest of the world needs to know about it. And if it's there for us to share best practice, how we deal with problems, how we deal with new phenomena like COVID, and if we can all go there and learn from each other, that's terrific. Mm-hmm. No objections whatsoever. However, in 2 weeks' time, our government is committed to signing a new treaty. It'll be binding under international law, and that treaty would now give this organization the power to, number one, in an emergency, take 20% of our PPE, 20% of our vaccines, which they would take and give to poorer third world countries. Number two, it would give them the right to declare a pandemic, a global pandemic, and they could tell us we have to lock down. Mm. Now, I think not only have we had enough of lockdowns, we can all now see that the approach that Florida took, the approach that Sweden took, where, life carried on, albeit with a few restrictions, but life carried on was a better approach. So that shouldn't be removed from us. And anyway, it's for us to decide how we deal with health.
But do the member bodies of this organization, the World Health Organization, do they not have a vote in all of this?
Well, the problem is we'll be giving authority to the World Health Organization just to do this. They would have the ability to say, right, there is a global pandemic, you must all lock down. Now, look, Brexit Britain, what was Brexit about? It was about taking back control. Mm-hmm. It was about us being in charge of these big decisions and not to give a bureaucracy, and one that's fairly questionable in terms of the way that it operates financially and much else. And look, in America, 49 of the Republican senators have got together, written to Joe Biden to say, look, let's try and reform the WHO. Let's not try and, sign this treaty. Mm-hmm. And what's happening in Britain is we're on the verge of signing this and there is no debate. There ought to be a public debate in Parliament where ministers explain publicly why they intend to sign.
Absolutely. My goodness gracious. This is scary. It truly is. They need to, the Britain, United States, everyone that is a free country should be standing up against this and making damn well sure that this does not happen, that the World Health Organization starts calling the shots. Just like Nigel said, hey, get there and share data and come together and that's how you deal with these things. You don't get to rule over all these other countries. I mean, hot garbage, and that's what they want. They want that global control. And my goodness gracious, make sure that your people who represent you in Congress and the Senate and everything else are standing up against this and hold their butts accountable, because the world would become a very scary place if this happened, if they indeed, in fact, got the power to call the shots. Now, I think even if they did get the power, I think in America, lots of folks would push back in a big way if that happened. But they want to make sure that they keep all of you in control. And so when things aren't not getting highlighted, I like to put them out there to keep you guys up to date on what's going on, especially globally, because that's what they want. They want this global world order. The elites want to have control. They want to take away our freedoms in America, which is very, very scary. So moving on to the dumpster fire of our economy and Bidenomics, more and more of the middle class is feeling the hurt. They truly are, not only with the rising grocery prices, but energy, rent, the list goes on and on. And as we just continue to throw our American tax paying dollars overseas, and I made a quote or a statement that I saw on X that is pretty relevant. Never thought of it this way, is how many countries out there, tax their citizens and give us money? None. So why in the hell are we flipping the bill for the world for all these other countries? Our hard-earned money. And that's where this stuff has to stop. And that's why these folks that are running for office, if they don't stand up against this, and hey, look, this is guilty on both sides of the aisle. We see it time and time again, these so-called Republicans who continue to vote to send our hard-earned tax dollars over to Ukraine and Israel and everything else. And we're getting hammered. And I've already posted last week with the rising debt in America. People are going into insane amounts of credit card debt right now. And the reason being is because they're trying to afford the essentials, the bare essentials, groceries, putting food on the table. And it's going to hit. I mean, because these people can only do this for so long. And these credit cards are charging an outrageous amount of interest on these people. And they're going to accumulate a lot of debt, and then they're going to default, and then our economy is going to be in big trouble. So I want you to listen, because I like to really highlight these folks who get on these platforms and they're really just voicing their frustration on what's going on and how they're feeling. And I think a lot of people need to hear this. Listen in.
$2,000 a month for a 1-bedroom, 750 square foot apartment, and I posted an apartment tour a couple days ago, and I am floored by the amount of comments saying that that is a good deal and I should be really happy about that. No. In what world is $2,000 a month, $24,000 a year for a 750 square foot apartment ever a good deal? I don't understand that. That just proves that we are living in a dystopian world where rent prices are insanely out of control. In what world would 750 square feet be $2,000 a month? I have absolutely no idea. That is just not okay. That is 1 month's pay for me. That is my whole entire monthly paycheck for rent. Luckily, I don't have to pay it by myself, because how in the world is somebody supposed to ever live on their own anymore when you have to make 3 times the rent, and rent is insanely expensive? Nobody can afford that. Nobody can get approved for that. For my little tiny crappy apartment, you'd have to make $72,000 a year to be approved on your own without a cosigner or a roommate or anybody else. How is that ever supposed to happen? It's not. So no, it's not a good deal. I will never think that that is a good deal.
Man, I feel for those people. I truly do. I mean, a lot of these folks, they went to college because they were told to. Don't go into the trades because it's not cool to go into the trades. No, go to college, to these woke indoctrination camps, get about $150,000 to $200,000 in debt, and then get out. And it's going to take you the entire rest of your life to pay off that debt. And I don't even think they can, because a lot of these interest rates, I think on the student loans, is 5, 6, 7%. I don't know what it exactly is. I know when I got my debt from chiropractic college, I think I was at like 2 to 3%. And I know it's very, very high. And with the rising grocery prices and energy and everything else, these people aren't surviving. And so what are they doing? They're defaulting already, or they're putting it on their credit cards, which is just going to default here in the future. Somebody just posted that they're at 8%. Student loans at 8%. My gosh, horrible, absolutely horrendous. Folks, if you're in high school right now, or if you have teenagers that are in school, talk to them about the trades. Don't allow them to go into school to get a garbage degree that is going to be worthless, that's going to actually make them go into debt over $100,000 to $200,000. It's just not worth it. We need good plumbers and electricians and HVAC and everything else, man. Those are the jobs that you should be going after right now, because they are looking for workers. And man, if you can get in there, doesn't mean you can't go to college and go part-time or whatever, but get a good paying job and pay that stuff off. Don't go in the debt. Don't get a loan for 8%. it's just not worth it. And these I call them kids, but these young adults are they're in trouble. They truly are. And that's the scary part, is when is this house of cards going to fall down? Look at the amount of debt that we continue to raise. We just continue to print money, right? Inflation continues to go up. We're sending all of our hard-earned tax-paying dollars overseas instead of investing into our country and into these people. It's just, when's it going to stop? And they're going to crash it. It's not like they have to, like it's going to. It's not. But when are they going to pull the trigger? Because these elites, they can manipulate the market. We've seen it time and time again. So they're artificially holding it up. When are they going to allow it to get real? When President Trump gets in? Immediately within the next 90 days of his presidency? Or maybe they stretch it out for a slow decline. I don't know, but it's going to hurt a lot of people. And God help the folks who are getting ready to go into retirement, that have saved for many, many years, for decades, to retire, and suddenly they lose 30 to 40% of value of their retirement. They're not going to be able to survive. We saw that in 2008. I know a lot of people personally who are set to retire around 2008 and 2009, and they had to work for the next 5 to 10 years because their 401ks took a big old dive, man. And that's what's going to happen. Again, that's why I keep highlighting these things, is for the people in the middle, is look, you have to vote with logic now. You may not like President Trump's personality. I've said this for years. You may not like his mean tweets back in the day on how rash he is on some things and when he's defending himself, but you have to look at policy. And you have to think, who's going to put America first? Who's going to put you first? Who's going to put your children and your future generations first? Biden and his administration has completely destroyed our country in less than 4 years. Can you even imagine what will happen with another 4 years? Our country won't survive. It won't. It can't. And that was their mistake. They could have had control for a while if they just would have went more moderate, but they didn't. They went way left. They went way left with the boys using girls' locker rooms and restrooms and biological men competing in women's sports and force feeding all this EV garbage and Green New Deal down our throat and making it mandated that we have to buy electric vehicles and everything else instead of allowing the free market to dictate it. And it's frustrating. It truly is. So again, if you're in the middle, if you're an old school Democrat, take your head out of the sand, unplug from CNN and the corporate media, and just ask yourself some very logical questions. Is this the party that you signed up for? It's not. The old school Democrats, man, no, you guys are considered moderate Republicans, and you may not love President Trump. However, he's going to be the best person to stop the insanity, at least stop the bleeding. And I've told you all, he's not just going to turn it around. It's going to take decades of all of us, ordinary people, doing extraordinary things, standing up and making sure that we're getting the right representation in office at all levels of office. I mean, holy cow, we're starting to see how important constitutional sheriffs are and how important the local townships and city commissions and councils are, right? Because they can stand up to the state when they're trying to get China companies into our backyard, right? So that's why you may think like, oh, I don't want to run for city commission. It's not really sexy. I want to run for state rep. Hey, look, go where your skill set is. And if you can make a change locally, then do it. Get in there. And I'm talking the school boards, the public school systems, because the public school systems are failing. They truly are. The math and science or math and reading are going down, and it's not the amount of money. I shared that graph last week. It's not the amount of money that we're putting in, because the money is climbing, but achievement is going down. And I think it was math and reading. And holy folks, that needs to be dealt with, and that's why the governor, she's going to start attacking the charter schools and the private schools and everything else, because the data is going to start to show that the private schools and the charter schools are doing a whole hell of a lot better in achievement as public schools go down. And the Dems can't allow that data to be out, because it destroys the whole narrative, and the teacher union will get checked really quick, which is a good thing. They need to be checked. They need to be reeled in, because it's gotten out of control. All right. So sorry to go off on the tangent, but man, I'm just very concerned about the status of our country and for these people that are middle class that are struggling. And man, I come from that. I come from My parents started from nothing, and we lived in a trailer for the first 9 years of my life. My dad hunted and fished. We lived off the land. We burned wood for heat. I know what it's like to struggle. And my wife and I, when we started, we didn't have anything. We started from the ground up, and we'd have to build it. I could not imagine if I had to start it with 8% school loan debt, right? I would never have been able to pay off my school loans. I'm still paying on my school loan, and I think it's like 2 to 3%. I'm still paying. I couldn't imagine having to pay 8%. I could not imagine that. And I was blessed. And don't get me in the NCAA right now and all this stuff that's going on with college football with these kids and everything else. Like, it was a blessing to get your school paid for in undergrad. And I was blessed to earn a full ride athletic scholarship to Western. So I didn't have that debt. And these athletes that are jumping schools, like with free agency and everything else, and the NIL getting paid. I mean, we didn't have any of that. I remember going into my locker my freshman year, reporting for camp, 18-year-old kid, and I saw that I had a pair of cleats, and I saw that I had a pair of shoes, a jock, shorts, and a t-shirt and socks hanging in my locker that I didn't have to pay for. And I looked around and I said, holy shit, I made it. I was so grateful just to have free clothes that was provided by the university, along with a full athletic scholarship. Fast forward to today, these kids they got QR codes that you can go in and you can just donate money to an individual athlete. It's insane. We didn't have any of that. And I'm all about, kids getting another job or allowing these kids to make some money, some part-time, but I don't agree with the millions of dollars that these kids are getting in college. I mean, school should be enough. There's another tangent that I could go off on, but that's just my 2 cents. So let's fast forward to Fauci. You guys all know how much I just love Fauci. Guy belongs in prison. My goodness gracious, he belongs in prison. He needs to be investigated, which they are. Rand Paul's doing a good job of calling his garbage out. But man, he needs to be investigated. Everybody involved needs to be investigated, and these folks deserve to be in prison. So let me just highlight Fauci lying, which he's very good at, along with Dr. McCormick from Georgia holding Dr. David Morenz, that is the Fauci fixer that they're calling him. So let's talk right now, or let me introduce Fauci lying. Here it is.
First of all, I didn't recommend locking anything down.
And the record will show, Neil, that we didn't recommend shutting everything down.
I recommended to the president that we shut the country down. And that was a very difficult decision because I knew it would have serious economic consequences, which it did.
Holy cow, do I despise that guy. And I'm a positive guy. I truly am. I try to see the best in people. I pray for these folks that I disagree with. But Fauci, he's pure evil. Pure evil. Because him and his flunkies, they ruined people's lives. And I will not quit exposing this garbage until something is done about it. That's why I won't let the lockdowns and I won't allow anything else to just be swept underneath the rug. I can't talk about the 2020 election because I will be deplatformed. You can't even mention it. But that, again, more and more video footage is showing that we all know what happened, right? I can't talk about it. I want to. We have great people that are fighting, and they're trying to silence them. And that's what they're trying to do throughout the country. They're trying to silence them, the Michigan electors and everything else. I can't talk about it or I'll get deplatformed. But we have good people that are fighting on all fronts right now. But my whole being right now is to make sure that Fauci gets exposed and the lockdowns and everything else that they enforced, all these people get what's coming to them. That's for sure. So let's go in and let's end the show on Dr. McCormick from Georgia holding Dr. David Morenz accountable, aka the Fauci fixer.
Dr. McCormick from Georgia for 5 minutes of questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Dr. Morenz, it's become apparent, now I'm no lawyer, I'm a doctor, but just looking through what evidence we have and what we subpoenaed and what we've gotten, it's become apparent that you and many employees at NIH and NIAID have been stonewalling and outright avoiding our subcommittee's investigation. Not only is this a violation of law as far as I'm understanding, but it also fosters a continual distrust of government and its officials and what we've been funding. Last July, this select subcommittee discovered the initial evidence of your misconduct and reported to the National Archives and Records Administration. And at the National Archives' direction, NIH started an investigation into your use of personal email to conduct official business and the unlawful deletion of federal records. Now, interesting, you talked about to avoid embarrassment. I think that's done just the opposite. When the investigation began, you were placed on paid administrative leave. In simpler terms, you have been continuing to receive your salary and your benefits, but do not perform any official duties. As far as we have been notified, you have not been subject to any discipline or accountability to this point. Is that correct?
Well, I would say that being placed on administrative leave is a discipline, because I love my job and I would like to be back there doing work, and it's painful for me not to be able to work with my colleagues. And may I also say that that investigation of me that you referred to for destroying documents exonerated me and said there's no evidence I destroyed any documents.
Okay.
And you probably have that information yourself. I have it.
I'm not going to ask about the status of the investigation because I think that's inappropriate at this time, and I don't think it would be appropriate for you to comment on ongoing investigation. But I hope the subcommittee receives the answers from the NIH as to the status of the investigation soon, which we still have not received, because we don't think that it's appropriate to pay people who aren't able to do a job at the time. So I think we're both wasting our time. In your emails recovered through FOIA, you boasted to Dr. Daszak that you had a secret back channel, quote unquote, to communicate with Dr. Fauci. That's what we've seen so far. We also have statements concerning the NIH, NIAID, and FOIA's officer instruction on how to avoid document production through intentional misspellings of keywords to avoid triggering hits in automated search queries in response to FOIA requests and congressional oversight inquiries. Dr. Morenz, do you deny these statements?
You know, I'm sorry, I'm not sure I followed everything you said. I'm also getting a little echo from your side, but let me move away from let me turn off the microphone.
May I reclaim that time that I'm going to repeat, please? Thank you. We have statements concerning the NIH, NIAID, FOIA officer instruction on how to avoid documents production through intentional misspellings of keywords to avoid triggering hits on automatic search queries in response to FOIA requests and congressional oversight inquiries. That you had these secret back channel ways to get a hold of Fauci, that you were trying to avoid queries through FOIA by misspellings and other things. That's what we have come to the conclusion on. Do you deny that?
I think there's a misunderstanding because the secret back channel thing.
Microphone.
Microphone.
I think there's some misunderstanding here. The secret back channel joking terminology, to my knowledge, was never about FOIAs.
So you're going to joke about back channels to Fauci and about misspellings on queries. That's a joke. Not very funny to me.
I would have to see this communication. It's confusing to me because I had no back channel. You know, I could walk into Tony's office and talk to him anytime I wanted. There's no need to have a back channel. And I had face-to-face meetings with him all the time. So, you know, the back channel thing.
So you deny these statements is what you're saying?
I think there's a mix-up somewhere.
So you deny it? Yes.
I guess I do.
Okay. Dr. Morenz, we have your previous statement on FOIA documents here. Chairman, I request unanimous consent to submit these documents for the record.
Without objection.
Okay. Based on your answer, you either lied to Congress or your transcribed interview or are lying here today. This causes me to believe that your behavior as senior scientific advisor to the director reflects much broader NIH and NIAID-wide practice, which really concerns me. This select subcommittee must bring HHS and the agencies beneath it to heel in every way possible over the final 7 months of this subcommittee. I want to take a moment to thank the chairman and my colleagues for their leadership thus far. We must earn back American people's trust and confidence. We must have full transparency. And with that, I yield.
Wow. That's all you can say. Wow. Man, I want that job. I want to hold these folks accountable. I think I'd be really, really good at that. who out there probably would agree with that me on a committee holding people like Fauci accountable, man, I would really enjoy that job, because that's what we've been doing as a grassroots army over the past 4 years, is holding these elected officials accountable. And that's what we need, is good Americans who are going to do what's right, to actually do the things that they say they're going to do when they're running for office, and not get into the deep swamp that unfortunately gobbles up so many good Americans. There's theories on why that happens. If you haven't seen the Tucker Carlson episode on what the 3-letter agency words are trying to do to these folks, you have to find it. You have to watch it. I can't talk about it on here, but it is interesting that we have all these great people with all these great intentions that run, and they get in there and they just suddenly switch. I wonder why that is. I don't know the answer to that, but there are some theories. Also, over on X, what used to be called Twitter, great platform right now. As of right now, it is. There's a lot of great information that is being shared, not getting censored. Of course, there's algorithms, everything else. I see a lot of the public figures over there who are not getting the reach that they want. It's all has to do with the algorithms. But I continue. Several trolls over there just constantly, they will hit me, and then I'll invite them on the show to talk about some of the issues in America and have a friendly little debate or conversation. And they always get very quiet after that. I've invited 3 of them on. I'm like, well, hey, if you feel that way, why don't you get on my show in front of, over 100,000 people when you look at all my platforms, and then debate me, and we'll have a friendly conversation. And then they go crickets. They don't say nothing for a while. I wonder why, right? Because it's very easy just to post a comment and talk crap and talk smack on a platform. But when you obviously have to defend what your party's doing, AKA Weekend at Bernie's Biden, they get very quiet, because you can't defend it. You can't defend the invasion of the southern border. You can't defend people getting throttled at the grocery store, and interest rates, and debt. And you can't defend on why we, right, Americans, continue to pay the bill for every other country, when every other country out there doesn't tax their citizens to give us money, right? You can't defend all that. So they get really quiet. And I love it, because I have nothing to hide. I would love for them to come on here and defend why they believe that boys should be using girls' bathrooms and locker rooms, and why they believe that men should be competing with women, and why the last unfortunate several or so school shootings have actually been from a certain group. Not going to talk about it, so I'll get deplatformed, but you all know who that group is. But the corporate media gets very, very quiet about it. Doesn't fit the narrative. And I like talking about it, because you are going to get common sense and logic with me. And that's my job as a leader of this grassroots army, is to continue to give you all up-to-date, accurate, and truthful information. All right. Until next time, God bless you. God bless the state of Michigan. Of course, and always, God bless these United States. Talk to you soon.